My ex told the judge I was an unfit mother, but he didn't expect our daughter to expose everything. I never imagined the worst day of my life would begin with a sentence that felt like a knife sliding under my ribs. You're an unfit mother. The words came from my ex-husband the moment I stepped into the courthouse hallway. His voice echoed off the walls like he wanted every stranger passing by to hear it. And maybe he did. Maybe humiliation was part of the plan. Emma squeezed my hand tighter. She was only 10, but she understood too much. Her eyes searched mine, silently asking, "Is this really happening?" I forced a smile I didn't feel. "It's going to be okay," I whispered, but even I didn't believe it. My lawyer arrived seconds later, pressed a comforting hand on my shoulder, and said the most terrifying thing a person can hear before a custody hearing. He looks confident. That's never good. We walked into the courtroom, and my stomach twisted. Not because of the judge, or the lawyers, or the strangers sitting in the back, but because my ex-husband sat there smirking like someone who already knew the ending. I didn't always see that version of him. There was a time when he was charming, funny, ambitious. We had met in college, dated fast, married faster. For years, I believed we were building a life together. But slowly, almost quietly, he changed. Or maybe he stopped pretending. The emotional cheating started first. "She's just a co-worker," he insisted. Then came the silent treatment, the late nights, the comments that chipped at me one insult at a time. "You can't handle stress. You're too emotional. Emma listens to me, not you." It wasn't loud abuse. It was the kind that poisons your confidence drop by drop. The day I asked for a divorce, he didn't yell. He didn't fight. He just said, "You'll regret this." And he meant it. Back in the courtroom, the judge called us to order. My ex stood, straightened his tie, and began speaking like he was performing. "Your Honor, I wish I didn't have to say this, but my daughter is unsafe with her mother." He presented himself as calm, rational, almost sympathetic. A perfect actor. I felt my breath catch as he continued. "She's unstable, volatile, neglectful." Every word was chosen to sting. He held up photos of me, exhausted after late-night shifts. Screenshots of messages where I vented to a friend. A short video of me crying in the bedroom, recorded without my knowledge. He packaged every vulnerable moment as evidence of incompetence. People in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Even the judge's eyebrows tightened. My lawyer objected to half the evidence, but the damage had already seeped into the room like smoke. Then my ex delivered his masterpiece. "Ask our daughter. She knows. She's afraid of her." Emma's head snapped up. Tears welled instantly. My heart broke in slow motion. When it was my turn to speak, I tried to stay composed. "Your Honor, nothing he showed reflects the truth. Everything is edited, twisted, or fabricated." My voice trembled. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. I glanced back at Emma. She looked small. Too small for what was happening. The judge leaned back, thinking. Then he said the words that shifted everything. "I'd like to hear from Emma." The air thinned. Even the lawyers stopped moving. Emma walked forward, her steps tiny, her hands clasped together. The judge asked her to speak only the truth. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom never hurt me," she said. She cries sometimes because she works a lot. And Dad gets mad at her. He yells more." The judge frowned, but Emma wasn't done. He told me to say she was mean. He said if I didn't, he'd take my puppy away. A ripple of shock moved through the room. My ex's face drained of color. But the story didn't end there, not even close. When the judge dismissed Emma back to her seat, he called for a short recess. My lawyer leaned over to whisper, "This might be enough to shift the case, but he's hiding more. I've always felt it." Out in the hallway, my ex approached us with a smile that made my skin crawl. "You're ruining everything," he hissed. She was supposed to listen to me. His mask cracked for a second, revealing the man I had lived with. The man who never thought consequences applied to him. Minutes later, the recess ended, and the judge asked both lawyers to approach. Whispering erupted between the attorneys, the judge, and a clerk who had just brought new documents into the room. My lawyer turned to me with a look I had never seen before, a mixture of triumph and disbelief. "Something's happening," he murmured. "Quiet. Watch." The judge sat straighter, tightened his jaw, and addressed the courtroom. "It has come to my attention that there is additional evidence regarding Mr. Carter's behavior." My ex's eyes widened. This includes text messages threatening the child, attempts to falsify testimony, and messages to a private investigator. My mind spun. Private investigator? What? Turns out my ex had hired someone to follow me for months, hoping to catch me doing something unfit. But instead, the investigator turned over the messages after realizing the case was built on coercion. He refused to participate in framing a mother. The judge's tone sharpened. "Mr. Carter, manipulating a minor and attempting to fabricate evidence is not only unethical, it is illegal." My ex stumbled over his words. "Your Honor, I didn't. This is being misinterpreted." "Enough," the judge thundered. The courtroom fell silent again. Then Emma whispered, loud enough for a few rows to hear, "Dad lies a lot." And somehow, that tiny sentence carried the weight of everything she had lived through. The hearing continued, but the tide had turned entirely. My lawyer presented additional witnesses, neighbors who had heard my ex yelling, a teacher who noticed Emma's anxiety spike before visits with him, even an old friend of his who admitted, under oath, that my ex had bragged about winning the custody battle just to hurt me. Piece by piece, his facade collapsed. By the time the judge announced his decision, my ex sat motionless, staring at the table like he couldn't recognize his own downfall. "Primary custody will be awarded to the mother," the judge said. "All visitation for the father will be supervised. Mandatory counseling, a full psychological evaluation, and a follow-up hearing scheduled in 6 months." Relief washed over me, heavy and warm, like a weight sliding off my chest after years of pressure. But the moment that truly broke me was when Emma wrapped her arms around my waist, pressed her cheek to my stomach, and whispered, "Mom, we're safe now." We walked out of the courtroom together, the sunlight hitting us as if the world had opened up again. Later that night, she handed me a drawing she'd made. Just 3 stick figures, her, me, and our puppy. And at the bottom, in her shaky handwriting, "This is my real family." I cried, not the broken tears he had used against me, but the kind that come from finally being free. That day, I didn't just reclaim custody. I reclaimed myself. And my daughter found her voice in a room full of adults who had forgotten how powerful honesty can be. My ex-husband tried to break me, but in the end, he underestimated the one person he never truly understood. Our daughter. For weeks after the hearing, Emma slept with her bedroom door open. She said she liked hearing my footsteps in the hallway at night because it made her feel safe. I didn't argue. I understood. Safety isn't a feeling you return to instantly. It's something that slowly returns to you, piece by piece, like memory. At first, the supervised visits with her father were awkward. He tried to act like nothing had happened, like the courtroom hadn't stripped away the last layers of the man he pretended to be. But children remember truths adults try to bury. One evening, after a visit, Emma sat in the car, staring out the window. I tried to lighten the mood. "Did you have fun?" She shrugged. "He keeps saying he's the victim." She looked at me, her eyes older than they should have been. "Mom, why does he lie so much?" I didn't know how to answer gently. So I answered honestly. Some people lie to protect themselves, or to control things. Sometimes they don't know how to be anything else. She nodded slowly, as if storing the explanation somewhere deep inside. As the months passed, something unexpected began happening. Pieces of my old life, the ones I thought I had lost, started coming back. I laughed more. I slept better. I cooked again. I even started painting, something I hadn't done since college. Emma watched me one evening and said, "I like this version of you." And I realized I liked her version of me, too. But freedom doesn't come without shadows. One night, around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think you won. This isn't over." For a moment, fear resurfaced. The old fear. The heavy kind. I took a deep breath and showed the message to my lawyer the next morning. He didn't even blink. "We'll get a restraining order. And we'll notify the court immediately. He's digging his own grave." The judge didn't take the threat lightly. A temporary restraining order was put in place within 48 hours. Visitation was paused entirely. My ex tried to fight it, but there were too many layers of truth now, too many witnesses, too many documents, too many cracks in the mask he couldn't repair. Still, something told me there was one more storm coming. And I was right. 2 months later, I received a call from his sister. We were never close, but that day her voice shook. He's leaving town," she said. "He quit his job. He's angry, blaming everyone but himself." It wasn't the news I expected, but it also wasn't a surprise. People like him don't accept consequences. They run from them. That night, for the first time in years, Emma slept with her door closed. When I asked if she was okay, she said, "Yeah, I feel safe now." Those 4 words unraveled something in me. I sat on my bed afterward and cried, not from fear, not from pain, but from the relief of no longer looking over my shoulder. But the biggest twist came 6 months later, at the final review hearing. I walked into the courtroom with calm steps this time. Emma didn't need to be there. This part was mine. The judge reviewed the evaluations, the reports, the missed appointments, the threats, the psychological assessment my ex had ignored completely. Finally, the judge lifted his eyes. "I am granting full legal and physical custody to the mother," he said. "Indefinitely." It shouldn't have shocked me, but it did. Full custody. Final. No more battles. No more hearings. No more fear disguised as uncertainty. When I walked out of the courthouse, the same sunlight hit me as the day Emma and I walked out hand in hand months earlier. But this time, it felt different. Warmer. Like a door had closed for good. At home, Emma was waiting on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders. "Well?" she asked, trying to hide her excitement. I smiled. "It's over." She launched herself into my arms, laughing and crying at the same time. That night we ordered pizza, built a pillow fort in the living room, and fell asleep watching movies. The courtroom, the lies, the manipulation, it all felt like another lifetime. We were safe, truly safe. But the story wasn't just about surviving him. It was about rediscovering us. And for the first time in years, I knew the ending of our story didn't belong to him. It belonged to me, and to Emma, and to the quiet, peaceful life we were finally allowed to build together. The truth didn't just set us free. It finally gave us peace. A few weeks after the final hearing, life settled into a rhythm that felt almost strange in its quietness. Emma and I were finally learning what peace sounded like. Dinner without tension. Mornings without fear. Laughter that didn't feel borrowed. One afternoon, as I walked onto the porch to bring in a package, I noticed an envelope tucked under the doormat. My chest tightened before I even picked it up. There was no name, no return address, just my first name, written in handwriting I recognized instantly. His. For a moment, the world shrank back into the small, suffocating space I lived in for years. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was a single piece of paper. "I'm starting over. You won't hear from me again. Be the mother you think you are." I didn't know if it was a threat or a surrender. Maybe it was both. I folded the letter, walked inside, and locked the door, not out of fear, but out of closure. Emma asked who the letter was from. "Someone who no longer gets to take up space in our lives," I said. And I meant it out a month later. I found Emma sitting at the kitchen table, drawing quietly. But her eyes were red, her hands moving slower than usual. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked. She hesitated. "Then what if he comes back?" I knelt beside her. "Why do you think he would?" She swallowed hard. "Because he called me." My heart stopped. "When?" "Last week. He said he missed me. He cried. He told me not to tell you, because you'd be mad." I inhaled sharply, trying to steady my voice. "Emma, I would never be mad at you for telling me the truth." She looked relieved in a way that broke me. She had carried that alone. I reported the call immediately. The restraining order became permanent. Life calmed again. until the afternoon a woman knocked on my door. She looked nervous, clutching her purse like a life preserver. "My name is Claire," she said. I used to date your ex-husband." My mind raced. I invited her inside cautiously. She sat at the edge of the couch, twisting her fingers. I left him. It took me months to understand what he was doing to me. And then I found out what he did to you. Her voice shook. "I'm so sorry." She handed me a folder. Emails, screenshots, voice notes. Proof of the manipulation he used on her too. Proof that revealed a pattern, a cycle, a trail he left behind. Claire finished with, "I don't want anything from you. I just thought you deserved to know you weren't imagining any of it." When she left, I sat in silence for a long time, the folder in my lap. For the first time, I felt not anger, but closure. Validation. He hadn't ruined me. He repeated himself. And I escaped. Chapter 4. The night Emma found her voice again. One evening, Emma asked if she could tell her story at school for a Truth and Courage project. I hesitated, afraid it would open old wounds. But she looked at me with determination I had never seen. "I want other kids to know they don't have to be scared of telling the truth," she said. So she stood in front of her class and spoke about fear, manipulation, courtrooms, and the bravery it takes to speak when adults tell you to stay quiet. Her teacher emailed me later that day. "Your daughter changed the atmosphere in that room. She gave other children permission to share their own stories." Emma found her voice in a courtroom. Now she was helping others find theirs. And I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. It was hers too. Emma slept through the night for the first time in days. Months passed. Seasons changed. And slowly, the world inside our home grew brighter. We planted a garden in the backyard, tomatoes, strawberries, wildflowers. Emma named each flower after something she wanted to grow inside herself. Strength, trust, joy, hope. I started painting again, filling canvas after canvas with colors I didn't know I still had inside me. Then one morning, Emma climbed into my bed with a grin. "Mom," she said softly, "I don't dream about him anymore." Something in me loosened, like a knot tied years ago had finally unraveled. That evening, we watched the sunset from the porch. Emma laid her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thanks for not giving up." I kissed her forehead. "Thanks for reminding me why I couldn't." Our story didn't end in a courtroom. It didn't end in fear or in conflict. It ended here, in a home filled with peace, in the quiet victory of healing, in the soft truth that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply survive long enough to rewrite your ending. And we did, together.